Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The 100. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I thought it was really interesting having Murphy kind of run, Josephine through the ringer of what it is to be Clark. Basically, the only person she really cares about fooling the most is Abby, but it's enough to fool everybody else is the whole point too. But just kind of hitting some of the highlights, obviously stuff that we would know to be like, okay, this, and that. And it's actually kind of interesting when you see her kind of trying to applying that to Abby, because the whole point is she's trying to use stuff that she knows against Abby, killing Clark's dad, everything that they did during the dark year, Kane and stuff like that, using all these little things to try and manipulate her, because obviously Abby is not all too keen on the whole idea of we could do this whole thing, or I could get Kane in a new body, but that would mean killing somebody. But it's like, hey, for one, it's not different from anything we've ever done before, but it's like, no, this would be different because all of that was about all of us surviving. Because for her, it's like, if we do this, I'm just making it so that Kane, this would be a situation for just one person, but obviously Josephine's trying to make it seem like, no, this is about all our survival and stuff like that. But think about it. If you help make everyone a Nightblood, that means they can bring people back in mass, and it'd be this beautiful thing. And then Abby's like, that don't sound like you, Clark. She's like, right, I don't know what. I'm like, and then she brings up the whole, my dad and what you did in the dark year, and if you don't do this, you'll lose Kane. And I just don't know what would happen to you if you lost Kane, who you'd become. And I can't lose you. And I'm like, oh, you're so good. You're a sociopath. The fact is, I don't know whether sociopath or psychopath. I never really know 100% the difference. But holy crap, the way she, you can tell Josephine literally has no empathy anymore. And part of me wonders, because later on it comes up in a conversation where Russell was like, did you forget what it's like to, what happened to you? Because it's like, was she always like this? And maybe he just didn't realize how vicious he was until now. Because, we've seen she already has a vindictive side because she killed Kaylee. Just because it's like, oh yeah, you killed me, and this is, but that's because I, basically killed someone that you cared about and stuff like that. But who cares? She's very vindictive. But part of me wonders, is it because she lost Gabriel? Because remember, Gabriel just gave up on this whole thing a long time ago. So maybe it's a situation, because obviously that was someone that she loved. Obviously, Gabriel loved her too. Hence why he went through so much to try and bring her back. But I guess that whole situation broke her heart. Maybe even broke her. Maybe it's kind of a similar situation of kind of like the dynamic that's going on between Octavia and Bellamy. Maybe it's kind of a reflection of that type of situation, how strained their relationship is. Maybe Josephine and Gabriel's relationship became like that too, and maybe just losing and being broken. Or maybe it's that thing. It's kind of interesting, kind of comparing it to another TV show on the CW, is The Vampire Diaries. Remember the whole rings that Jeremy and Alaric wore, that every time you died you came back a little more twisted? What if that's it? Eventually it gets to that point where it's it becomes so routine of coming back to life in a new body and stuff like that, that you eventually stop looking at humans as just humans. You just look at them as that's the meat sack I'm going to take over next. Once again, I make comparisons to the TV show Altered Carbon. Reason why I reference that, because I've never read the books, the novels that is based on, but nevertheless, it's kind of that same thing of when you get so caught up in the whole immortality thing, it just becomes fleshed in you, and it's it doesn't matter. And so I think every time you become a little bit more machine-like, because you kind of detach yourself from human tendencies and caring and stuff like that. And I think that's what happened to Josephine. That could be another layer to it, because they are all over 200 years old. They've all done this multiple times, because there's even a conversation between Raven and Riker, because Riker tries to make it seem why does she have to defile because he keeps souvenirs and stuff that was important to some of his previous hosts, and this clock thing that was from his second host, and it's this is from my current host, and it's we used this, me and his mom used it to remember. It's you try to make it seem like it's some beautiful thing. It's Raven even puts it up once again, it's you're getting people to worship you. It's not they getting in someone else's body because it's wanting to live on forever. That's it's fine and dandy that you want that. You're scared of pain. Raven understand that. She's been through a lot of pain herself. She understands wanting to escape pain. That's literally the whole arc of season 3 with the City of Light. She understands, but the fact is you're willing to sacrifice someone else's life for that pain is something else entirely. And it's like an innocent person. These are people you're grooming since they were born to be like, oh, you're gods and you need to be worshipped and stuff like that. Because Riker acts like he's so above it and everything, but even Raven's like, when it's all said and done, is this going to be your last body? He doesn't say anything. So it's like, so don't act like you're so above it and you just hate the way the system is and that you respect everyone's. Like, no, if you really had such a problem with it, you'd literally be doing what Gabriel is and turning your back on this entire thing. But you didn't. Why? Because you've gotten to that point of like coming back is so you need it because you're scared to die. You know, you're more scared than anyone to die, that you're literally afraid that it might all be over because they were closing in on that situation until the group from Earth came, you know? So it's such an interesting thing to think about. Obviously, you know, it seems like this Nightblood situation might be heading in that direction because Josephine was able to convince Abby. But it's so interesting when you hear the conversation because it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, once, you know, everyone's Nightbloods, we can have to pick and choose them. It's no longer like, oh, we have to nitpick, like, oh, if you don't have the blood, then it's like you can't be a compatible host and everything. But when everyone becomes one, it's like, oh, we can pick whoever we want. It's like, because they don't have to worry about, because there's things, people without the blood don't have babies and stuff like that. Because if you're a null, you don't have the blood, then you're just kind of like someone who scrubs toilets. You might be a guard. You might be someone of less importance. You're just like, it's almost like you're below a regular person in some standards of the sense if you don't have any night blood, you know? And so it's just, but the thought is that they're just like, ooh, whose body am I going to take over next? Like that, even Josephine's looking at it like that's sick. And then like they kill the Lee family. That includes Kaylee. Hence, once again, why I bring up the whole fact is, well, their chips were there and available. Well, not chips, but their drives were there and available, so it makes sense. But at the same time, it's almost like you could tell Josephine kind of wanted to do it anyway, just because obviously she was pissed at Kaylee. She killed her anyway, but it's like, I'm sure completely killing her is just kind of like, eh. I mean, they seem so nonchalant about it, but it's like you're permanently killing them. It's not even like, oh, like, you know, fake death like you guys have been dealing with, where it's like, oh, you just put yourselves in a new body. It's like, no, you literally wiped them from the drive, so, which is interesting. So, and I think maybe that could lead to itself to even be a plot point. Obviously, like, there's some residual of those people that still stay. Maybe, I mean, obviously all that data that was there was Kaylee's, because once you've overwritten it, like, all your data is supposed to stay there because that's all, like, it's enough to handle one consciousness, not multiple. So any, you know, it's a whole thing I'm trying to break down, and I'm just kind of, like, getting all convoluted with it, so I'll stop. But, that was interesting. She even, like, I love the conversation too of like her mom being like, why'd you come to me instead of your dad? It's like, because dad thinks with his heart, and like me, I'm very practical about this, and you don't understand that practicality about it too, of like, this is how we survive and everything. So I even love the whole like trying to convince Murphy to convince Bellamy situation, because at first, you know, Bellamy is very pissed too, because it's like, yeah, no matter how much an issue Clark had with you, Murphy, she cared about you. She cared about all of us, and they killed her. And he's like, I want revenge. And it's like, dude. And, you know, Murphy's trying to talk him out of it, but then, like, Bellamy's like, why aren't you chained up the same way I am? What the hell are you here for, Murphy? And he's like, all right, I'm going to be upfront with you. And it pissed him off because it's like, they literally killed Clark. And he's like, but I'm trying to make sure that none of us die. It's like, what did you see when you died? He's like, I saw, you know, death. You know, I saw, you know. And for him, it's like, yes, I'll admit it. I have my selfish reasons for doing this, but it isn't just about me. Obviously, it's mainly about you, but he wants to justify it by being like, oh, it's about you guys too. It's like, first and foremost, your survival, like subsequently, because you know you want to get everyone else on board with you. So obviously, you're going to think about them afterwards. The fact of the matter is, so, it, you know, he admits it, but at the same time, it's not like it makes it better that you admit that you did have selfish reasons for doing this. But it's like, oh, I'm doing this for our survival. This is how we survive. How would Monty feel about this? And that pissed Bellamy off, because it's like, Monty would be ashamed of you. It's like, maybe you're right, or maybe he'd realize that this is the only means. It's like, no, Monty was above like killing people like that. He never wanted. So don't even twist that around like, yeah, this might be a different means of it, but we're still killing everything that is a person. Like, because, you know, in his mind, Monty would think like, no, that could either be me, that could be Harper, or that could be, you know, that could just as easily be Jordan. And I'm sure in his mind, because that was always someone he cared about, I'm sure the thought of it being Jasper probably is something that probably pops up in his mind as well, of that, you know, being a potential and everything. So it's like, Monty would never be okay with it, it's my point, you know, because he'd always see, like, you know, morally how wrong it is. And, you know, like, Monty was always the moral compass. And it's so interesting I bring that up because that was something that kind of got brought up too. It's like, you know, because, you know, Clark is having that conversation with everyone, like, oh, we should stay here until we learn, well, Clark, quote unquote Clark, really Josephine, it's like, oh, we should stay here till we learn how to kind of survive on our own here, you know, be able to build our own compound and stuff like that. Omari ends up agreeing as well, but, you know, obviously Raven was kind of like, no. But Clark's like, we've done a lot to, you know, things we regret to survive. And Raven's like, I haven't. I'm like, right. Raven's one of the few people that hasn't done anything that I think would be regrettable. She's never really betrayed anyone. She's never killed a whole bunch of people. I mean, they could easily be setting Raven up to be in that situation that for the first time in the series. Because I'm trying to think about it. She's never had to make like those heavy ass hard choices like that necessarily. Like she's made some self-sacrifices. Like what was it? Upgrading her brain like she did and everything. Like that's about it. But that was like self stuff she did to herself. So it's more so, well, no, because that was a byproduct of the whole situation, if I remember correctly. And like you know what you get what I'm trying to say. Like she's never done anything to other people like that. I mean, she's lost a lot, and like I said, she's done, you know, stuff to try and fix her situation. But it's like she's never like outright been in the same predicament anyone else in the group has, whether it's been like outright killing a lot of people, you know, like a Clark situation or a Bellamy situation. You know, she's just never been in that position, you know, so they might be setting her up to be in that position this season. I don't know. We'll see. I just thought that was kind of fascinating when you actually break it down. I'm like, right, she's never really done anything terrible like the others kind of have. Like, everyone's kind of had their things that they regret what they had to do to survive. She was never in that position, you know? So, because, like, everyone else literally has something like that, you know? Because, like, you know, like I was referencing with Bellamy, like, what he did in Season 3 working with Pike, killing all the people in Season 3, like, yeah. So, it's just kind of interesting to think about. I also like, obviously, Josephine trying to be there for Maddie, but like I like that whole thing of like, okay, so like you need to do the whole separation thing, or like, well, because she was basically in the process of like communicating with all the previous commanders, and obviously like Shaynada was there, and it's like if it gets interrupted, you don't know what kind of damage that would have caused. But I guess because Josephine doesn't care, it's kind of like, I know better than everyone else when you don't know shit. It's a like, I guess because she's like, oh, the flame and their drive situation are very similar, so she's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But also because it's like, well, Maddie's not your daughter, so you don't care. But the whole situation is like, it does seem like it did backfire because of that. It seems like it put Shaynada in a position where he has more control inside of the flame than any other commander. Because when it was time to like have a sit down with all the other commanders, he was the only one that was there. Because I guess he pushed all of them, the others, to like a lower level of consciousness inside of the flame. Because Gaia's trying to, you know, get her to take control and everything, but Shaynada is kind of like, oh, like, the fact of the matter is, look at all these, like, you know, the fact is, I was in a similar situation where I had an advisor who was trying to tell me how to handle everything, but it's like, no, that person just feared me, feared my power and what I was my potential, and it's like, oh, your advisor, Gaia, she's just trying to do the same thing. She's afraid of what you're capable of, so you're gonna have to kill her before she kills you. Maddie's like, no, but then like Gaia is there chaining her up, but that's for the purpose of this. But obviously Maddie's kind of like letting the Dark Commander kind of get in her ear and whisper all this stuff, kind of feed into her like doubts and stuff. And I think that kind of, you know, that kind of plays to the whole role of like being the commander and everything, thinking everyone's out to kind of get you type of thing. But obviously, like, you know, everything kind of playing out the way it does, like Clark Josephine showing up to kill Bellamy, but Russell showing up to stop it. She cuts Bellamy free. He starts choking Russell, but she's like, oh, go ahead, give in to like your violent tendencies, but let this be the end, an eye for an eye. Clark's dead, so kill my dad to do it, but it makes Bellamy remember like this isn't what Clark would want, so he stops, and it's like, oh, it kind of works out in the end. So Murphy gets the things that he wanted, the drives he wanted. He had two in particular, so I'm sure that's one for him and that's one for Mori. So then you have like Bellamy having that bad news of like having to tell everyone, including Maddie. But sadly, this is telling Maddie at a time when she's at her most vulnerable. And now like the Dark Commander's talking to her and she's like, shut up. Now tell me how to kill everyone. Because she pushes and exiles Gaia so that, now she, Gaia's the only one that's there that knows how to kind of calm her down and kind of finish the separation. But it's like now those two worlds are bleeding together. Now, like unintentionally, Josephine might have made their situation way worse than it would have already been, because now, like, for Maddie, it's like, my mom is dead, like, I'm going full ham, dude, I'm going to, kill all of you, which, Bellamy was in that too, but now it's like, Bellamy at least has enough of his senses to be like, this is wrong. Maddie's got someone whispering in her ears, but like, do it, give in to the dark side, so that type of situation. So that's interesting. I did like that Echo ended up figuring it out, because it's like things didn't line up. There's that whole situation with that guard in the tree thing. I was like, oh, like he's asking for mercy, but Jay was like, no, this is my friend. Like he's punishing. I thought it was that type of thing of like, oh, he's punishing himself, but it seemed like it was more. I was under the impression like it was him punishing himself. But I guess, like, basically it was his fault that Rose died, and maybe he, as a guard, who got blamed for it, because it's like, oh, this happened because you let the shield down to let the ship in and everything like that. So because he took the blame of it, he got hooked up to the tree. But she's like, oh, I'll be there soon enough, but I got a new charge and everything. But Echo, being who she is, she puts him out of his misery, because it's like no one deserves to suffer like that. So out of the kindness of her heart, she did that. But she pushed Jade up to that situation, because now it's like, oh, like I know about Clark now, what you did to my friend. The fact is that Bellamy, you lied about his situation. So where is he? And I find out that he's dead. I will slit slit Josephine's throat. I'll slit your master's throat. And I was like, okay, you're being honest with me. Good. I'm gonna leave you here. I might come back for you if I come back in time. So probably not gonna work out well for her. Obviously, Bellamy doesn't want to fight, because it's like Clark would want us to kind of, handle things. The whole point is to be here and be better. So if we go killing all these people, yeah, what they do is wrong and disgusting. It's messed up. But to honor Clark, and the fact is, the sacrifices that were made by Monty and Harper to get us here, we can't make those same mistakes again, so they have to find a way to kind of live with this situation. What that means necessarily going forward is definitely going to be interesting. Obviously, Murphy's the only one that's super into this whole thing. And Mori, maybe when he talks to her, she'll be kind of down, or maybe she won't. Maybe she'll be like, wait, you're okay with all this, blah, 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 type of thing of like, you're going to let other people die for you. Like, she might, because Mori kind of doesn't always side with Murphy. Like, they initially they saw eye to eye. It was all about survival, but, for Mori, it's like, they've got a family now. It's more than just them. There are other people as well. And Murphy, once again, is all about himself, which is also about other people, because it's also about Amori because he loves her. But it's a whole complicated situation on its own, so there's that. Then there's Dioza and Octavia. I really like that whole situation with Octavia's arm. I was like, oh man, like I thought that was gonna be less of an issue than it was. I was like, oh, I figured like, because it comes up later on, I'm like, oh, this is a Herschel situation. I'm referencing The Walking Dead. Spoilers, it was like back in season 3 that he gets his basically Herschel gets his leg cut off to stop the infection from spreading. I kind of figured something like that might happen. Kind of gets to that point potentially later on. We'll see whether or not that ends up being the case or not. But the fact is that the time dilation doesn't stop. It's spreading like a virus. And it's like, oh, once it gets to your brain, you're dead. I'm like, that's interesting. I would have thought it would have stopped. Like, I thought it stopped with the affected area, like that being her arm. But it's like, nope, it's spreading. So Dioza learns about the situation, but she's still kind of like I'm gonna kill, Gabriel, go back to the sanctum and everything. And the dude's like, oh, I get it, it's for your baby, but the fact is your baby will grow up a certain way. But for Dioza, it's like, oh, it's better than kind of being out here, but the dude's kind of like, is it really though? Just with everything that, kind of goes down in Sanctum and stuff like that, the whole Null situation, it's like, would living as a Null really be better than kind of just being out here on your own type of situation? But obviously, like, it's like, but he's like, oh, join this battle and stuff like that. It's like, I'm done, fighting, for lost cause. But then he's like, well, what about Octavia? You're going through so much to save her. Oh, right. It's because you don't want her to be in the same situation as you are. Like, the way you are next to, once again, Stalin and Hitler in the history books, you don't want her to be kind of remembered that same way. And once again, like, we've seen that because Dioza talked about it last episode of, like, she wants to get, like, Octavia, as long as you're still breathing, you have an opportunity to change things, like, to do things differently. So that was interesting. Like, it kind of comes back to that, and it's like, yeah, Dioza looks at Octavia and she sees herself, but it's like, Octavia is young enough to kind of shift things around. Yeah, you did some stuff in the past that not everyone liked, but you still had the opportunity to grow and to change and make things better, to do better, so it's not a lost cause yet. So that Octavia doesn't become like her, and it's kind of sweet to see that she kind of mortal enemies now, like, Dioza kind of looks after. It's almost interesting. It makes you wonder if they're going to kind of have like a sisterly relationship, or do you think it's going to be more of a situation of like Dioza's almost going to look at Octavia as almost like one of her kids? Maybe in Octavia, might even look at her kind of like a mom. She hasn't really had a mom. Like, the closest mom figure she's had in her life is Indra. But then there's also the situation of like her hand was making certain movements, and the dude's like, whoa, wait a minute. And then like they start, her hand starts making this movement like a circle, like once he gives her like a rock to kind of like chalk some stuff out, which at first I was like, are we doing some crazy stuff where it's like her hand is from the future and so it's leaving her a message type of thing? I thought that's what we were doing, but it's like, no, it's supposed to be a spiral representing the anomaly that she's supposed to be drawn to it, and so it's the dude and Dioza, and it's like, wait, what? An anomaly is calling you? Maybe it's because it's kind of like is it a living entity? Like, it's something, because even like the whole like, oh, how does this whole situation work? It's like, you kind of have to find the old man to ask, because there's sap from the trees that reverse time. It can do it for wounds, but not aging, like, because time can't seem like, it seems like time and aging in that regard don't cancel each other out type of situation. It's able to slow down the process that Octavia was going through, but not completely stop it. It is probably a situation of eventually she will have to cut off her arm, and that's definitely going to be interesting to see what ends up happening in that regard. I mean, Octavia is she's probably going to have to learn how to start fighting with just one hand, potentially. That's a whole problem all on its own. It's so fascinating with just everything that's went down in this episode. I'm so curious to see where all this ends up taking us next episode. What's Abby going to do the moment she finds out? Like, because yes, this is about saving Kane, sure, but it's also about like damning a whole bunch of other people if she goes along with this whole making Nightblood thing. So it's like, hey, are you going to save the one man you love over other people? Would he be okay with that? Which is interesting, because let's not forget, like, Kane was literally in that situation in season 4 when he chose to save Abby when she was like, no, don't save me. He did it anyway because he loves her, but he also justified it by being like, you're a doctor and everything, so it's better for everyone if you survived and everything, and for Clark and everything. He made other circumstances, and I guess Abby could be in that same situation of like, this isn't just about you, this is about our survival and everything too. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what goes down when she finds out, because I doubt they're going to hide that from her. It's like, you have the right to know that that's not your daughter anymore. So, but also, like I said, that the biggest thing is that whole anomaly thing. I'm like, what the hell is that going to turn out to be? Is what I'm probably looking forward to the most potential. Obviously, like everything else too, just like, it's a complicated situation to find yourself in, because it's like, obviously no one wants to fight, but obviously they do want revenge, because even like Echo was like, so what do we do now? It's like, we do nothing because this isn't what Clark would want. But obviously you have Maddie being like, nah, bump that, I want revenge, they killed my mom, I'm going to kill every single one of them, because what they do is super fucked up. So what that mean for Shade Hader, that whole situation of whether he'll try and take control, will she kill him, and still kind of stay in that raged out mode of like, that darkness kind of takes control of her, even though she's not necessarily being controlled by him. It's like, once you're touched by the darkness, maybe it's harder to pull back away from it, that type of thing. I also can't forget, I'm completely forgetting the end of the episode too, where we have Josephine going to sleep, and then when she wakes up, it's like she's in this room. There's all these drawings. It's Clark's, the prison that Clark was in at the beginning of the series, the cell she was in. But it's drawings of everything and everyone in her life. The question then becomes like, okay, so is that Josephine waking up surrounded by that because that's the last remnant of all that is Clark? Or, what my initial thought was, no, that's Clark holding on to the last little bit that is her life. I mean, it feels like they kind of seem like they left it ambiguous, so we don't know what it is until like the next episode potentially. But I kind of feel like Clark's experience with the City of Light, that whole situation at the end of season 3, going inside of the thing inside, the City of Light, but also like the flame and everything, like going inside of it, I feel like that gave her brain some kind of defense that no one else really has. Maybe Maddie has it, where it's like not enough of them is completely eradicated. It might just be the fact is Clark's will to survive is too damn strong. Maybe it's a combination of all of it, but I feel like there's probably like a scientific reason why there's a spark of her potentially left and everything. It's kind of my thought process. Once again, we'll ultimately have to wait and see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.